welcome back to our channel. This rare dime coin might be worth a fortune. Discover its secrets, like and subscribe for more amazing coin finds. In 1981, the United States was navigating the uncertain waters of a shifting economy. Inflation was still lingering, unemployment had climbed, and the nation had just inaugurated a new president with promises of economic recovery. In the realm of coinage, the U.S. Mint continued its meticulous operations, pushing out millions of coins each day to keep up with circulation demands. The Roosevelt dime, minted continuously since 1946, was part of that reliable stream of currency. Composed of copper-nickel clad and bearing the long-familiar profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt, it moved quietly from mint presses to pockets across the country. But hidden among the ordinary strikes of that year, a mistake took form, one so subtle that it would go unnoticed by the mint's quality control systems and remain buried in circulation for years before a single pair of eyes would recognize its true significance. The discovery came unexpectedly. A seasoned collector in Pennsylvania, known for his attention to minor variations in coins dismissed by others, had been acquiring bulk change from bank branches for decades. His preference was the dime, not because it was glamorous, but because it was overlooked. It was a coin small enough to evade casual scrutiny, but just large enough to hide surprises. One day, as he sifted through hundreds of 1980s-era dimes, one piece held his attention longer than usual. Its surface glinted with an unusual brightness, but that wasn't what held him. It was the lettering, specifically, the word Liberty. Something was off. The spacing appeared tight. The alignment, just slightly skewed. He turned it over and studied the torch, olive branch, and oak branch motif on the reverse. Again, the features seemed shifted, not dramatically, but enough to register as inconsistent. He weighed the coin and measured its diameter. Nothing suggested it was a counterfeit. But the devices, the designs, bore hallmarks of something unintended. He compared it to other 1981 dimes and noticed even more discrepancies. The coin was different, not just in strike quality but in the actual design elements themselves. The clue lay in the obverse design. The portrait of Roosevelt appeared subtly more defined in the cheek and jawline. The field surrounding his profile was cleaner, the details crisper, almost as though it had been struck with a newer, sharper die. But 1981 was a transition year in more ways than one. That year, the Mint was making preparations for major die retooling that would go into full effect by 1982, a process intended to extend die life and improve strike efficiency. In that flurry of internal updates, something had gone wrong. Die varieties are a complex matter in coinage, and the Roosevelt dime series has had its fair share, though most fly under the radar. In the case of the 1981 dime, the error stemmed from a transitional die pairing. A reverse die intended for proof coinage, sharper and more detailed, was mistakenly paired with a standard obverse die used in business strikes. This hybrid resulted in a dime that was technically struck for circulation, but bore the intricacy of a coin meant for collectors. That accidental blend made the coin stand out to those who knew where to look. At first, the community was skeptical. The collector who discovered the coin shared high-resolution images with experts. They studied the spacing of the date, the serif structure of the letters, and the torch design on the reverse. Slowly, consensus emerged. This was not an ordinary 1981 dime. It was a transitional error that resulted from a proof reverse die being placed into use for general circulation, an action that, by protocol, should never have happened. Then, more surfaced. A few from the same region. Others scattered across the country. But they were rare, exceedingly so. Most had already suffered the wear and tear of circulation, making verification difficult. Grading became critical. The highest grade specimens confirmed the suspicion. These coins bore a reverse design die that matched known proof-only issues. The lines were finer, the separation between the torch flames more pronounced, and the E pluribus unum text carried sharper edges. As the details of the error came to light, so too did the value. In the early days, such dimes were quietly changing hands among collectors for modest premiums. $5,000, maybe $10,000 for a well-preserved specimen. But as authentication services began recognizing the error as a legitimate variety, market behavior shifted. The rarest of these, those that had somehow escaped the heavy abrasions of daily commerce, were fetching staggering sums. By 2010, a certified MS-67 example crossed the $25,000 mark in a private sale. The intrigue deepened when an internal memo from the mint, unearthed through a Freedom of Information request by a coin historian, revealed that in 1981, a batch of proof reverse dies had been temporarily transferred to a regional facility for die calibration and training purposes. According to the memo, there was no intent to use them for production. However, during a week of unusually high demand, several dies were rotated in to maintain output, and it's believed that one or more proof reverse dies entered standard circulation without formal authorization. Whether the act was deliberate or accidental was never stated, and the mint has never officially commented on the discovery. This revelation elevated the coin's status from error to historical artifact. Collectors now viewed it not just as a mistake, but as a time capsule, a snapshot of operational strain, human decision-making, and a moment when precision gave way to urgency. Demand surged, but supply did not. The 1981 transitional dime remained incredibly rare, with only a handful of uncirculated examples certified by major grading services. By 2018, auction records showed steady escalation. One particularly striking MS-68 specimen with a perfect full torch on the reverse sold at a major numismatic event for $74,000. Another example, slightly lower in grade but with an immaculate strike and mirror-like fields, sold privately for $81,000. In both cases, the buyers were advanced collectors aiming to complete era variety sets for the Roosevelt dime series, an endeavor almost impossible without this elusive 1981 piece. Collectors began referring to it in whispers as the "Ghost of 1981, a coin born in bureaucratic confusion and operational overlap, destined to outshine its more famous relatives." And still, the number of verified specimens remains low. Dozens? Possibly. But most agree that only a few have survived in the high grades needed to command serious attention. The vast majority either wore down in anonymity or were tossed away as pocket change, their significance lost in the shuffle. Now, as the years have passed and the coin's tale has solidified into lore, it stands as one of the most captivating error coins of the modern era. The 1981 Roosevelt Transitional Era Dime, a quiet outlier in a time of rapid change, reminds collectors that even the smallest coin can carry weight far beyond its face value. Today, depending on its condition and clarity of strike, examples of this rare dime are valued between $48,000 and $95,000, an astonishing sum for a coin that once sat unnoticed in the palm of a hand, its secrets waiting to be revealed. In 1990, the United States Mint was a model of modern efficiency. The Reagan era had just concluded, and the nation was transitioning under new leadership into the complexities of a post-Cold War world. While attention focused on political shifts, the mint's attention remained on precision, billions of coins, produced methodically, with high-speed presses and automated quality checks. Among those coins, the Roosevelt dime continued its quiet run, unchanged in design, overlooked in circulation. The 1990 Roosevelt dime was never expected to make headlines. And yet, it would do just that, not because of what was added, but because of what was missing. It wasn't a seasoned numismatist who found the first clue. It was a young coin roll hunter in Oregon, new to the hobby, curious about the patterns of mint marks and subtle changes in coins. On a rainy afternoon, she sat at her kitchen table, methodically unrolling dimes, studying them under a magnifier, when one struck her as oddly plain. It bore the correct year, 1990. The obverse was otherwise normal, Roosevelt's profile clean, Liberty, and, "In God We Trust," in place, and the year struck clearly. But something was absent. Where the mint mark should have appeared, just above the date, there was nothing. A blank space, smooth and unmarked. She checked again. The reverse design was crisp, torch-centered between olive and oak branches, the familiar United States of America curving around the top, one dime below. Everything else was standard. But that tiny missing letter, no P, no D, no S, became a vortex of curiosity. She placed the coin aside, wondering if it had simply worn away. It hadn't. Experts would later confirm that what she held was something exceedingly rare, a 1990 S Roosevelt dime. A coin that should never have existed outside of a proof set, struck in San Francisco, and yet here it was, likely intended for collectors only, and yet it had slipped into the hands of the public. The story behind the 1990 NOS dime began deep inside the San Francisco Mint, the facility responsible for striking proof coins. Proofs are not ordinary coins. They are made with polished dies and planchets, struck multiple times for clarity, and often sealed in protective cases for collectors. Every proof coin struck at San Francisco bears the S Mint mark, until, suddenly, a small batch in 1990 did not. It was an internal oversight, likely caused during die preparation. Mint employees, in the process of refurbishing a set of dies, failed to punch the S into one of the obverse dies used for proof coinage. The die, missing its mint mark, was nonetheless approved, installed, and put into production. A handful of dimes were struck and included in proof sets. It wasn't until those sets reached the hands of collectors that anyone noticed something was wrong, but the real mystery wasn't just the existence of NOS proof dimes, it was that one or more of them escaped the proof packaging process entirely. Somehow, a NOS proof dime, or perhaps more than one, entered the general flow of coins. Whether by accident or misjudgment, it ended up in circulation. The dime found in Oregon had clearly been handled, used, passed from pocket to register to drawer. It bore minor abrasions and faint rub marks, proof that it had spent time outside the collector's world. And yet, even after its journey, the coin remained unmistakably distinct. The edge was sharper than on standard dimes. The mirrored fields, though slightly dulled by circulation, hinted at its origin. Most notably, the relief on Roosevelt's profile and the crispness of the lettering suggested multiple strikes, as was the proof method. The coin had all the hallmarks of a proof, but none of the collector packaging, none of the mint mark, and none of the intended exclusivity. The coin community reeled. It wasn't the first time a NOS proof coin had been discovered. Earlier examples from 1968, 1970, 1975, and 1983 had already become legends. But the 1990 NOS was different because it emerged so much later, well after the Mint had enacted stricter quality controls to prevent exactly this kind of error. As more collectors began inspecting their 1990 proof sets, a handful of additional NOS dimes surfaced, confirming the error's legitimacy. But the specimen that had entered circulation was still the anomaly, a rogue proof that had bypassed every level of oversight and ended up in a handful of change. Its journey alone made it extraordinary. Dealers began offering premiums. The first authenticated specimen sold for $12,000, then $18,000 within the same year. The excitement rippled across numismatic circles. Some believed that as few as 10 to 15 examples were ever struck without the mint mark. Others speculated there may have been a full die run, with many pieces quietly tucked away, still undiscovered. The value of the 1990 NOS dime rose steadily, driven by its rarity, its story, and its unusual blend of proof quality and circulation presence. Grading companies treated each submitted piece with meticulous care. A particularly high-grade example, with near-flawless fields and a sharp strike, was graded PR69 by PCGS and became the star of a major auction, where it commanded a staggering $77,000. Another, discovered in an estate collection, changed hands in a private sale for $84000. But most intriguing of all was the debate surrounding whether a second type of 1990 NOS existed, an even rarer version struck using a business strike die set accidentally finished to proof standards. This variant, if it exists, has yet to be definitively confirmed, though whispers of such a specimen continue to circulate among high-end collectors. As of today, the 1990 NOS Roosevelt dime remains one of the most mysterious and coveted coins of the modern era. Its existence reminds collectors that the most compelling stories in numismatics don't always come from the oldest coins or the ones with the fanciest designs. Sometimes, a missing letter, a tiny S, can elevate an everyday object into a piece of living history. Depending on grade, clarity, and provenance, confirmed 1990 NOS dimes are valued between $42,000 and $84,000, a testament to how even the smallest absences can leave the biggest impressions.